ॐ श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ गुरुभ्यो नमः। नमः सर्वेभ्यः. I thank the Shri Aurobindo Center and Mishra sir for giving me an opportunity to come face to face on the occasion of the World Sanskrit Day and speak about this absolutely wonderful language. Well, we all know about Sanskrit. We have all heard about Sanskrit. Sanskrit is not just a language of religion and spirituality. On the contrary, Sanskrit is a perfect language which is aesthetically, scientifically, and logically embedded in perfection. And that is the reason why it has been known as Deva Bhasha. It is very unfortunate that people have misinterpreted Deva Bhasha. Due to the juvenile serials which come on television, people have kind of understood the meaning of Deva Bhasha as a language that exists between a group of deities who live in the skies, and that is why they kind of make fun of it. Well, it is extremely important to understand the deeper meaning of Deva Bhasha. The word Deva comes from the root Div, which also gives us the word divine and divinity. The guna or the quality of Akash, which is Div, is Shabda, and that is why it is known as Shabda Gunatam Akasham. Now, the divinity that is spoken about Sanskrit is the all-pervasive divinity, that divinity which pervades all entities of the universe, the divinity which indwells all entities of the universe, and the divinity in which the entire universe is rooted. So that is the divinity which is being spoken about here, and Deva Bhasha is a metaphorical, a symbolic codification of the same. So it is not to be understood in the literal sense. And one has to kind of break free from this kind of a misconception. Again, the beauty of Sanskrit is that, in a very few words, you are able to express deep philosophies. You're able to express deep cosmologies, deep thoughts and ideas. So I'm going to just take two examples of the one from the Chandogya Upanishad, which says Ekoham Bahusyam. Now, in a very limited usage of words, it has expressed the entire creation. If I translate it from Ekoham Bahusyam to I am one and I become many, I'm using a number of words. And though the translation is very close from the original, but it certainly does not, communicate the same idea which Ekoham Bahusyam does. The same thing goes with the Eko Vasi Sarvabhuta Antaratma, which, expresses the entire philosophy of non-dualism. And if I kind of convert it or translate it from Eko Vasi Sarvabhuta Antaratma to he is one who indwells all beings of the world as the Atman or as the Brahman, it does not give the same meaning, and it does use a lot of redundant words. So the beauty of Sanskritam is that it communicates deep ideas in minimum words. There's another thing about Sanskritam that not only just Sanskritam, but in fact all traditions of Indian culture, whether it is music, whether it is art, whether it is poetry, whether it is Darshan Shastra, they accept the duality of the world as temporary, but their ultimate aim is realizing the non-duality that resides in the apparent names and forms. And that is what Sanskritam also aims at. I'll give you an example of a word, dog. Dog, if I say dog, the first imagination that comes to our mind is an animal who has got 4 legs, a tilted tail, 2 ears, and 4 canine teeth, and that's about it. So we have a very outwardly description of the same. However, when Sanskritam, gives almost 100 words for dog in Panini Ashtadhyayi, it describes not only the outer characteristics of a dog, but also dogness, which is universal dogness, which is the internal qualities or properties of the dog. Likewise, it does the same for trees and for all entities of the world. And so, you have words like Dirghanad, he who has perpetual sound for a dog. You have the word mandala. Mandala is normally, a round diagram or, a round shape. Even the Akash Mandalam is known as Mandalam, but here it is used for the dog because a dog moves in circles. You call him Ratri Jagar because he's awake throughout the night. You call him Sarma, the one with lucky feet. You call him Gram Singha because, he is supposed to be the lion of the village, and you call him Vakrapucha, which means the one who has a tilted or a bent tail. So if your child, tries to understand a dog or a tree or water or, fire from his textbooks, I think he'll be in a position to write about a page or a paragraph about that particular entity. But if he is in a position to memorize the 80 names or the 70 names or the 100 names of a certain entity, he will not only be understanding the external characteristics of that particular entity, he will also realize the internal universal properties of that entity, and he will be concluding the fact that behind all entities lies that one non-dual reality called the Brahman or the Atma. Because ultimately all realities of the world have got that one divine quality, and that will establish the child in self-sameness, coexistence, peace, harmony, non-violence, because he will see the self in all beings of the world, and he will see all beings of the world in the self. Now, there's another thing about Sanskrit which is very beautiful. Like English, it is not a static language. It is continuously growing. It is expanding. Panini in the Ashtadhyaya, it gives root sounds. And therefore, you can create newer words. So you don't have to live with a particular object called ball is ball forever. You can give it so many other names. You don't have to, limit yourself to the word earth. You can give Bhumi many names. It is Vasudha. It is so many. It has got so many other names, and that is the beauty of this language. I was going through the Journal of American Sciences and Research, and I got to know that this neuroscientist called James Herzl, he came out with a study that when you learn Sanskrit, when you learn the mantras of Sanskritam, your brain expands, your memory expands. And he calls this, in this research paper, as the Sanskritam effect. Now, the Sanskritam effect is a combination of your studying Sanskritam, of your memorizing the mantras, and which leads to expansion of brain. So while the entire world was busy in writing books and safeguarding their knowledge in huge libraries, we had Indian tradition wherein through the Guru Shishya Parampara, a large body of text related to Darshan Shastra and related to Natya Shastra, related to Manusmriti, Vedanganas, so on and so forth, were transferred from the Guru to the Shishya. Is it not amazing that the students in India had immense capacity to imbibe all of this? How did this capacity build up? Well, the reason behind this is the Sanskrit effect. So Sanskritam not only leads to great memory and increasing your brain power, it also establishes you in ethics. It also establishes you in dharma. It also establishes you in morals, virtues, which are certainly not distinct from Sanskritam itself. I would also like to mention here that Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in his mission manuscript, had declared that there are 3 lakh unpublished Sanskritam works available in India. That is a huge amount of treasure of wisdom that we have. And it is so unfortunate that these have yet not been published. I mean, Sanskritam is one language which has touched every area of our life, from economy to philosophy to you name it, and it is there. but it is very sad that we still have 3 lakh unpublished work lying somewhere, which is not being explored by the wise of our society for the benefit of all beings of the universe. It has to be made use of, and the government must do something about it. Further, I would like to say that it is not for no reason that Sanskrit has been declared as mother of all languages. While English, which is not considered as a Vishishta Bhasha, there are many languages in the world which are considered as Vishishta Bhasha, which is Portuguese, Dutch, German, French, Russian, so on and so forth. And it gives me immense pride to state that, the roots of all these languages lie in Sanskritam. So I just found few words, and I'm just going to tell you about that, how they have been derived from Sanskritam. So the German word iner comes from the Sanskritam word antara. Likewise, the French word avatara comes from the Sanskritam word avatar. The Arabic word nilofer and the Latin word neophan comes from the Sanskritam word nilpatal. And English, everybody knows. Thousands of words have been taken from the Sanskritam language. Just to name a few, cow comes from gau, tree comes from tree, grass comes from ghas, same comes from some, yog comes from yog, so on and so forth. Not only were the words taken from Sanskritam, but in fact, the names of certain countries also come from Sanskritam. So one of the countries called Iran comes from the Sanskritam comes from the Sanskritam word Aryan. And it is also said that Maharishi Panini was there in that region, that's what I have come to know from a Sanskritist. Likewise, Singapore comes from the combination of two Sanskritam words, Singhapuram, which means the city of lions. And similarly, we have Sri Lanka, we also have Bangladesh, which comes from the Mahabharata, it's mentioned in the Mahabharata, Vangadesham. So it's not only here that Sanskrit has had an effect on words and countries, but even the brands that we are wearing, the brands that we use in our day-to-day life have their root and origin in Sanskritam. So I have two examples here, which I chose. So the Sanskritam word Nikita or Nikit goes to Russia and becomes Mikita. It travels to Greece and it becomes Nika, which is the goddess of victory. And the same name originates as the brand Nike, which we all are aware of. Likewise, two Sanskritam words, the Lupta, which is known as, translated as extinct or hidden in Sanskritam, and means Lupta, or Lupta means hidden or extinct. And the word Hamsa, which is a beautiful bird in India, which also is a symbol of wisdom, ultimate reality, called Brahman or Atman, and is associated with the goddess of wisdom, Saraswati, comes together in order to form the brand Lufthansa. So Lufthansa or Lufthansa, the philosophy that is behind it is that every entity in the world has the Hamsa or the wisdom or the Brahman or the Atman hiding within these koshas. And the one who realizes it becomes a Paramahansa. So that is a beautiful philosophy. So you can see how Sanskritam also becomes a cause, a mother of certain brands that we have in India, in the world. I'm sorry. Now, it is a very sad state of affairs that, in India, this language has been ignored completely. In India, the moment, the government tries to promote this language from class 1 to, let's say, the bachelor's, and tries to make it a compulsory language, there is immense amount of refutation from people of all faiths and all systems, Why? Because this language has been labeled as a language of the Hindus. It has been labeled as a language, even in the Hindus, it is meant only for Karma Kanda. However, throughout the world, whether you talk about Germany or you talk about America or you talk about Vienna, everybody is spending a bomb on Sanskritam for the sake of research and development and introducing it as a part of the entire education system. In fact, I was reading a couplet the other day that the University of Heidelberg in Germany, they were flabbergasted. Why? Because they received so many applications and there were so many willing people around the world who wanted to study Sanskrit, that they had no seats available for the same. And it is not only with Germany, who proudly state that their roots are Aryan and they belong to the Sanskritam tradition, but there are other universities around the world, like the Harvard University, the London University, the Frankfurt University, the University of Vienna, so on and so forth. List is absolutely unending. Sadly, whenever we have spoken about introducing Sanskritam in India, there has been it has not been welcomed by people of other faith. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was reading this book by a scholar called Said Suleiman Nadwi, and he writes a beautiful book called Arbo Hinde Taluka, in which he clearly states that 90% of the Quran, the words used in Quran, have been picked up by Sanskritam. I'm going to give you a reference of two references from the Quran Sharif. One is verse 76, 5.5, where the word kafur is used with the connotation of fragrance. And it, Suleiman Sahab clearly states that it has been picked up from the Sanskritam word kapur. Likewise, there is another word in Quran which means faith, and it is ashadaha, which comes from the Sanskritam word shraddha. So you can see the kind of similarity. So I personally feel that people don't really want that people should go ahead and study Sanskritam. The reason is that if they do study, they'll realize that there lies unity in diversity. And if that happens, then a lot of political people would lose their job. However, I would conclude by saying that it is extremely important to know the self, and in order to know the self, you need to know your roots. And the moment you know your roots, you will realize the treasure that lies there. The best gift that you can give to the coming generation is the treasure of wisdom. And just before I leave, I would just like to say, Sarala Bhasha, Sarasa Bhasha, Madhura Bhasha, Mridula Bhasha, Deva Bhasha, Veda Bhasha, Sanskritam. Jaitu Bharatam, Jaitu Sanskritam.